People apparently liked the first video I did about tanks that should be added to War Thunder, so here we are. I took a few suggestions from the comments of that video, and combined them with what I thought would be cool, so hopefully you guys agree that these vehicles would be nice to see in game. But anyway, let's get started. First up is a French light tank destroyer, the ELC Even 90. Developed during the 50s, the ELC program was supposed to be France's answer to heavy Soviet armor. The idea was that if you had a lot of small, light, and hard-hitting tank destroyers, you could effectively counter massed armor attacks. Weighing in at 6.7 metric tons, the ELC Even had a top speed of 70 km an hour on road. It had a 168 horsepower gasoline engine that gave it a power-to-weight ratio of around 25 horsepower per ton. Its oscillating turret was equipped with a low-pressure 90mm gun, which was mounted in an offset fashion. The 90mm gun was fed by a 5-round drum, which the gunner could replenish from his position. The cannon had a reload rate of around 2 seconds. The vehicle could carry 30 rounds in total. The ammunition used was high-explosive anti-tank, which could penetrate around 300mm of armor. Overall, the Even 90 is pretty similar to the T114 BAT, though generally better. It would have better top speed, power-to-weight ratio, reload rate, ammo capacity, but less penetration and damage. It would fit pretty well in France's tank destroyer line at 7.0, right after the CA Lorraine. Either that, or it could be France's Tier 5 Premium. Regardless, it seems like it'd be a lot of fun. Next up, there's two modern tanks for Japan, the STC and the Type 10. There's not a whole lot to say on either of them, since there's obviously not a ton of information floating around. The STC is essentially just a Type 90, but with the option of mounting a Japanese 120mm cannon, instead of the license-produced RH-120. If my memory serves me right, the Japanese cannon was better overall, but was also more expensive. The STC would probably be modeled with worse armor than the Type 90, so it could be placed at 10.0. It would make for a nice backup MBT in top-tier lineups. Depending on how Gaijin models the Type 10's armor, it would either be a slight improvement over the Type 90, or a straight side grade. If given its full armor package, the Type 10 would be less mobile than the Type 90, likely have armor that is on par with or slightly better than the Type 90, and have a better cannon. It should go to 10.7, as Japan's penultimate MBT. Honestly, I just want them to add it so people will stop asking for it. Another French tank would be the Char 2C, a super heavy tank fielded during the interwar period. Adding the Char 2C would finish War Thunder's interwar heavy tank collection, which is comprised of the T-35, the NBFZ, and the Independent. Out of all of them, the Char 2C would be the most heavily armed and armored, but it would also be the slowest. It had at max 45mm of armor, and essentially the same 75mm gun used on the M3 GMC, so you're looking at possibly over 100mm of penetration. My gut reaction would be to place the Char 2C at 1.7 or 2.0, but that could be wrong. I don't play low tier all that much, so I don't know what the meta is, but it'd definitely make for a better low tier premium than the H-39. Next is a main battle tank, the South Korean K-1, or Type 88. If the past to developer section is anything to go off of, we might be getting a Korean tech tree in the future, and the K-1 would be a great top tier addition for that. If it looks familiar, that's because General Dynamics essentially sold the XM1's design to South Korea, so that they could adjust it and make their own indigenous main battle tank. This effort resulted in the K-1, which completed its first production batch in 1987. It differed from the M1 in a few pretty significant ways. For starters, the gas turbine was replaced with a 1200 horsepower diesel engine. This gave the 51-ton tank a power-to-weight ratio of 23.5. Its top speed on road was 65 km an hour. The suspension was also changed. Instead of a pure torsion bar system, the K-1 used a mixed hydropneumatic and torsion bar arrangement. This allowed the K-1 to kneel, giving it more gun depression on top of the -10 it already had. This is extremely useful for Korea's mountainous terrain. The transmission had 4 forward gears and 2 reverse gears, which would translate to 8 and 4 in game. The cannon was the license-produced 105mm M68, and had 47 rounds stowed in the vehicle. The gun was fully stabilized. Since the K-1 is basically just a slightly worse M1 with a few quirks, it would probably be placed at 9.7. If Gaijin never ended up adding the Korean tech tree, it would make for a good American event vehicle. Some people have said that Japan should get it, but if you understand Japan's relationship with Korea, or how they weren't involved with the K-1 at all, it doesn't make much sense. And finally, there's an experimental US main battle tank, the CATTB, or Component Advanced Technology Testbed. The CATTB was, essentially, an Abrams outfitted with a lot of experimental equipment, basically to see what worked and what didn't. The CATTB featured a unique cannon, the XM291, which could be configured as either 120mm or 140mm. The cannon was loaded automatically. The rate of fire was around 8 to 12 rounds per minute. Weighing in at 60 tons, Its engine was a 1,450 horsepower diesel. Max armor thickness was around 1.3 meters on the turret face. The CATTB is obviously a huge ask. If it was added, it would be the best MBT in the game by a wide metric, so it would need a BR of at least 11.3, if not more. America certainly doesn't need it, I just think it's really cool. And that wraps up this video. As always, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.